Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the May Western Reserve Safety Council program, Top 10 Mistakes Employers Make When Managing Workers' Compensation. Mind you, this is the top 10 because I'm pretty sure that there are far more that I make. So we're really excited to have Barb and Todd from Sedgwick Managed Care, Ohio, join us. For the program today, we'll just give another minute or so for those that are still joining on, and we're going to jump right into the program and make sure you get the information that you came here for. So welcome, everybody, and we will get started in just a moment. 11:47. So once again, welcome everybody to our May program. Top 10 mistakes employers make when managing workers' compensation. Throughout the course of the program, if you want to follow along on your own, the slides and resources can be found at solentchamber.com/slides. We have a couple of quick announcements. We've got a couple spots left for our job fair on June 3rd. The registration is solentchamber.com job fair. You can reach out to any of us here at the chamber for more information. We do have a membership program questionnaire, which we will send out the link as well to attendees and those involved in the Safety Council about what is it you want to hear in fiscal year 22 from the Safety Council. Really helps us put our programming together. So if folks could take a moment to do that, that would be fantastic. This is MCO enrollment month. Happens every 2 years, May 3rd to May 28th. Sedgwick MCO, formerly Comp Management Health System, is the Solent Chamber's trusted partner to help our members navigate workers' comp claim processes, help employees recover and return to work, and control costs. This is certainly an essential component of our workers' compensation program. And it helps us reduce our premiums every year. Enrollment is simple. There's no cost. If you're on the slides, you can click there for an enrollment form and return the form. If you're already enrolled with Sedgwick, you don't need to do anything. Barb, who is presenting today, is happy to take your call, happy to receive an email from you. Like we said, this is who we work with. I'm sure if you are in an HR function in your job, it's probably like me. I've probably gotten 72 emails since May 3rd, about this. It's a tough landscape to navigate. So those of you that attend these programs know Barb, know her commitment to helping folks save money. So if you are in the market or looking at making a switch, then make sure you reach out to Barb. Her contact information is on this slide, her email as well, and definitely worth taking a look. So if you are, as you're starting to get back to work and people are coming back to the office, we are pretty sure there'll be I don't know if it'll be as bad as last March and April, but there will certainly be a run on supply chain on PPE stuff that for people getting back or increasing your customer load. So, please know that we have locally sourced PPE that can help you. And if you have open jobs, make sure you're posting those on our Facebook jobs group. Certainly a great resource to do because we know that workforce development is a challenge. Lastly, on this slide, we do have a LinkedIn group for idea sharing. On the link you can find there. Like you said, it'll also be in the slides. Great way to connect with folks focused on safety. All right, so here is the agenda. You've heard a lot from me already. I'm ready to be quiet. We're going to do a couple of BWC updates from Dan. We've got a couple sponsor commercial and sponsor thank yous. And then certainly by noon, we're going to turn it over to Barb and Todd and certainly make sure that you get any questions answered that you might have. So nothing further from me. Dan, I'm going to ask you to unmute. There we go. You're out.
Hey, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. We've got some sun out today, so hopefully you'll be able to enjoy that later. Just some updates in regards to Safety Council meetings. Yes, they will continue to be virtual for fiscal year 2022. We had a meeting about that last week or the week before, talking about some of the ins and outs in regards to our safety council meetings. Another thing that's been extended is the indoor air quality assistance program through June. So that is still up and running. Our grants program, we have 4 grants that are available. We have the trench safety grant, the firefighter exposure grant, employers working with persons with developmental disabilities, and school safety grant. If that's something that is in your particular field or would like some more interest, please contact me and I'll be able to assist you with that if needed. Some private employer dates here. We have MCO open enrollment throughout the month. And then the 15th is the last day to change the installment schedule online. And then of course, all the programs that we have to offer too, like drug-free industry safety, those things are there as well. The deadline to complete the policy activity rate, the PAR program, also the end of the month as well. Next slide, please. The public employer dates, again, MCO in open enrollment, and then the group rating application is due. So if these things come up or are part of what you're doing or being a part of, try to mark these on your calendar so that you'll have the necessary things ready for that. Our employee webinars, the May 11th one obviously was yesterday, but we do have another one Thursday, May 27th. They're a half-hour long. I encourage you to take a look at those if you, again, mark those on your calendar as well. So basically, most of the updates I'm getting is from the actual webinar itself. And there's also some safety tips on there too. We still are continuing our safety webinars. The next one coming up on May 25th is Fatigue Affecting Your Safety Program. So that's an hour long. Again, you pay into workers' compensation premiums, so these safety webinars are free. Next slide. Thank you. Virtual training, we have these trainings coming up as well. If there's something that interests you, by all means attend. Your employees can attend as well. So if there's something that interests you, June's is already scheduled as well. We'll talk about June's next month. Virtual training is going to be in our future. Again, our consultative services, on-site visits are still currently suspended. I don't know when I'll be back out in the field, but if there's anything that you need, let me know. I'll be glad to assist you in any way I can. And then, of course, we have our COVID resources. This has been kind of the long-standing thing that we've had up the last few, maybe year now. So if there's anything that you need, if you have questions, you can go on the BWC's website or the ODH's as well. So again, thank you for your time and look forward to today's segment, and I'll turn it back over to Tom.
Thanks, Dan. That was a great transition. Yeah, for the COVID resource has been up for months. No, actually, that's a year now. So it's hard to believe, but I encourage anyone who's on the call today or the program today, reach out to Dan. It's a great resource. If you're not sure, if any of those dates apply to you, reach out. That's what Dan is here for, and they do a fantastic job in helping you navigate the landscape of the Bureau of Workers' Compensation. So I want to give a quick thank you to our sponsors that make this happen. Behind the scenes through their funding, really allows us to focus our time on getting great content and great speakers and great programs. So you can see our founding sponsors: Cleveland Clinic, Nestle, Integrity Staffing, SwageLock, and North Coast, and then some sponsors that really stepped up this past year: Ving, Zercoa, and SwageLock. Tony, I've tested this about 20 times. I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm going to share my other screen.
All right, I can see it over here, so it looks good.
All right, so I'm going to switch it over and I'm going to hit play. Give me 1 second here, and it's going to just start playing. Here we go. Are you ready?
it worked perfectly there, Tom. Thanks so much. Basically, just want to share with everybody that we're so excited about our new modern safety talks that we just launched. You just got kind of a preview of the 12 that are out there now, along with some bonus content that come available with them. And one of the things that we really tried to focus in on when developing these, we worked with industrial hygienist Rachel Walla in the screen there and other consultants to make sure that we could really launch some safety talks that not only packed a punch from content, but were very modern, were very upbeat, very appealing to a YouTube generation, from millennials on up to Gen X's. They're fast-paced, but high-quality images and very good analogous stories and examples to really draw people in. And we encourage you to explore them and see if they're right for your company. They also come with the Ving complete tracking, reporting, reminders to keep people on track with safety talks, as well as help keep you, the safety managers, in the know as to who's compliant and who's not. So we just launched these nationally, and already our customers are starting to use them, and we're getting great reviews. So please, I'll put the hyperlink in the chat, or just go over to vingapp.com, scroll down to the middle of the page, and you'll see a picture of Rachel. You can just click on that, and you'll end up on this page where you can learn more. Thanks so much, Tom.
Awesome, Tony. Thank you so much. Encourage folks to check their product out. It's fantastic. And when you start looking at, as people are getting more and more back to work and so forth, safety is always a key role. But as we start to crowd our spaces and places more as we rebound, definitely worth checking out Ving and all that they do. So just wanted to acknowledge once again our year-long sponsor, SwageLock, and all the work and the support they do in helping us deliver the content throughout the course of the year, as well as their COA, a products and industrial applications company. Lenny's your contact over there. Here are some of the things that they produce and manufacture. I am still waiting for the tour because I want to see this stuff in action. So these are, you saw the raw materials, and then you start seeing some of the products, where their products end up. Up in the upper right-hand corner there, that artificial hip joint, I got part of one of those, so I'll thank Sercoa for putting that in there for me. All right, so now it is exactly 12 o'clock, so it's very important for me to keep on time. So I'm really excited to introduce Barb and Todd from Sedgwick to present the top 10 common mistakes employers make when managing workers' compensation. So we are super excited to have Barb and Todd, and I am going to be quiet and Barb and Todd, take it away.
Thank you, Todd. Tom, can you hear me?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I have Todd Keserich with me from Sedgwick as well. And we're going to kind of cut through the top 10 mistakes employers make when managing workers' comp. So we'll just kind of go on to the next. And thank you for having us, by the way. All right, so the most common workers' comp mistakes are the result of lack of knowledge, lack of communication, or lack of involvement or knowledge. So yes, those are, hopefully we'll tackle every one of those and just kind of explain how we should be communicating so that you've got the best program going. Next page. The mistakes can negatively impact an employer's profitability. The lack of knowledge, lack of communication and involvement can negatively impact an employer's bottom line. It is pertinent to understand the workers' comp process. If an employer doesn't understand the process, then they could be making decisions that could have a negative financial impact. So it's critical. And our job is to, as MCOs and third-party administrators, is to continue to educate you so you understand the process from top to bottom. Claims management versus medical management, critical to understand the differences between the two. So medical management is essentially an MCO role. Claims management is essentially a TPA role, but the employer needs to understand both in its entirety, so that the end result for you financially is a good one, and of course your injured employee. And then rates, critical to understand how your rates work. What are your thresholds? What are your max values? What are your survey dates? How do you mitigate losses before your survey date? How to mitigate losses before the claim hits your experience. So this is all pertinent information so that you don't make mistakes moving forward. Next page. So here are the top 10, and I won't list them out for you, but Todd and I will. So we have 10 slides together. We'll go through those and talk you through those. Next page, please. So first, not understanding the workers' compensation system. It is complicated. I've been doing this for 39 years, and I learn something all the time. So it is a complicated process, but employees, like I said earlier, the employers need to know how the system works so that you can make good business decisions. You do need to understand the rating, and I already kind of covered why. Claim reporting and claims management. Delaying claim reporting has a negative financial impact. Claims management, there are so many decisions you have to make during a claims management process. Making the wrong decision or getting the wrong advice could have a financial impact. It could delay the claim, cost you thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars. So it's imperative to use all of your resources, and they're listed below. You, the injured worker, the claimant, managed care organization, BWC, and third-party administrator all have to be involved together on your claims, claim by claim, understanding the claims management.
You know, Barb.
And then
Barb.
Yep.
She mentioned she's been in the industry for quite some time. I think when we sat down and added up the total, I think we've got over 70 combined years of experience in the industry. And we've seen over those years the industry changed quite a bit, and I think it's changed towards the better, but it's gotten a lot more complicated. So I just wanted to kind of chime in and drive home the point where it's a confusing system, but it is something that you need to try to understand at least the basics and who the role players are and who your team members are that you can kind of tap into for support.
Yeah, thank you, Todd. Keep chiming in when I miss something. And then, of course, BWC programs. There are a variety of BWC programs that the Bureau allows employers to take advantage of. And it just depends on which program, which group or group retro program you're in. It depends on whether or not you can stack other programs. We see employers leave money on the table every day by not taking advantage of some of the BWC rebate programs or return to work programs. Mm-hmm. So again, it's a team effort: employer, injured worker, MCO, BWC, TPA. Next page, please. So first, I'll cover the MCO responsibilities for those of you who don't know exactly what we do behind the scenes. So of course, we take in the initial report of injury. Providers and employers can report to us, and we are the ones who get it first. We pull it together, get the demographics together, do a 3-point contact, let everybody know we have it, and then we send it over to the BWC. All return to work questions definitely need to go through the MCO. Now, you most certainly can work through your TPA on that as well, but the MCO is on the front line with your employee, with the doctor, and with you. So all those questions should be directed to them first. Best case scenario is to make sure that you're talking to both the MCO and the TPA at the very least, always, with regard to return to work questions. And you can do it on the same call in the same conversation. The MCO has to work with change of physicians. All MCOs have a network of physicians. All of our networks are different. We all have a basic network of physicians. Sedgwick, for instance, has what we have a basic, which everybody else has, but we also have our own occupational list of physicians all over the state of Ohio. And we take those lists and we provide employer by employer. Your providers will go by where your facilities are, where your locations are, and where your employees live. The MCO's job of fraud is to make sure that if we see it, we have to report it. So we can be reporting fraud on an injured worker. we could be reporting fraud on not employer, a provider. And I mean, there's provider billing fraud that happens. So it's our job, it's a mandate by BWC that we must report it if we see it. Your MCO is responsible for providing injury reporting materials to you. And this could be done in a variety of ways where you can have the injury reporting materials. You just make sure that you go to your MCO when you need them, especially the MCO cards. Your employees, when they're going to the doctor, really should be given an MCO card to the provider so the claim is filed properly. The MCO deals with questions on all medical bills. We are the ones who pay the bills. So all questions just come right to us on those. While the BWC is the organization that pays for prescriptions, they pay the prescriptions on the claims, and then we find out after they made a payment what they paid on for prescriptions. Our job is to review the prescriptions claim by claim, make sure the injured worker is getting what they're supposed to be getting, make sure the prescription is appropriate, make sure it's not there's not overprescribing. And then if there's any question with regard to prescriptions, we pull together what's called a drug utilization review to review that, and then it goes to the Bureau of Workers' Compensation for a second eye. And then the decisions are made on the prescriptions. The MCO is responsible for pulling together all the medical records and documentation on the claim. Whatever we get, what comes through our door, simultaneously goes over to the Bureau, and so that we'll both have the file contained with all the medical records. We can only secure the medical records for what's the claim being, what's alleged in the claim, or what the claim is allowed for. Your TPA can get medical records if there's questions for other body parts or for other issues if there's questions on claims. Rehabilitation, this is huge. The MCO's responsibility is rehabilitation. We take the claim in. If your injured worker has to get therapy or get diagnostics or go through any type of work hardening, our job is to see them through every bit of that. Our job is to see them through their rehabilitation until they're returned to work full duty. So even when they're light duty, we still stay involved. It has to be a full duty before we kind of bow out. Utilization management, there's a lot of behind the scenes that happens in utilization management. This is bill review, this is treatment review. Many claims, even though claims are out of your experience, many claims are still active or paperwork comes through that we have to work through. So utilization management is essentially a behind the scenes group of nurses that take care of all sorts of information. The MCO procedure, that's just kind of what we do. I think that's a throw-in. The MCO's role is to make sure that we are getting our folks back to work, modified duty, transitional full duty as fast as we can. And questions on treatment and treatment plans all go through the MCO. We get the treatment requests daily, we adjudicate them. There's treatment plans on every single claim that's open. We're the ones who run those treatment plans along with the provider of record. And so any questions with regard to that would come to the MCO.
You know,
Next
Barb,
slide. Thanks, Todd.
Yeah, hang on one second. I mentioned that a lot of things have changed over the years, and Barb and I have been around long enough to predate the MCOs. And I think it's been just over 20 years that the MCOs kind of came into play. And boy, I tell you what, I think that's really been a great piece that's been added. The Bureau used to handle a lot of that activity prior to the MCOs coming in, but I think Barb and I will both agree that, that's really had a lot of impact on controlling the overall cost of claims. MCO plays such an important role in, monitoring the activity, et cetera. Incidentally, Barb is on the managed care side of the house, and I'm on the third-party administrator side of the house with Sedgwick. So as we move forward, you can jump to the next slide. We move forward, you'll see that she'll be kind of handling the MCO topics. And here I am, the TPA side. So some of the responsibilities on the TPA, a little bit more directed towards, the defense of the claims, the consultation to the employer. So, reporting of the injuries, we help with that. with employers. We try to provide them, consultations, certification, compensability. We can kind of talk to employers to help them investigate claims, determine, whether or not they want to, accept a claim, or if there's anything that is within the fact pattern that might want to be challenged. And then some of those things that you can use to kind of challenge it is, question the return to works. The fraud would fall into place if we identified anything that was egregious. We do represent employers at the hearing level, and then try to implement some cost-saving actions, such as advice on maybe getting a second opinion examination, help settlement of claims to try to reduce the overall exposure. Take a look at maybe excessive treatment. The MCO's role is to kind of go by the book and review activity in the claim, but we can kind of step in if we feel as though maybe the treatment is getting a little on the excessive side. And then we get involved with the discussion on the rates and all of the activity that goes towards developing what premiums are, which it's a payroll driven system, so payroll audits are very critical in the process. The last item down at the bottom there, violation of specific safety requirements, which is a mouthful. Glad I got that out without stuttering. If you know what that is, it's probably not a good thing. But it doesn't come up very often. If an injured worker, for example, is working in an unsafe environment that the employer somehow altered and created, you can kind of put yourself on the hook for additional out-of-pocket costs. So that's kind of an overview of a little bit of what the TPA responsibilities are. Next slide. So another big mistake is not being involved. Barb and I have spent a lot of time together out visiting clients, and I can kind of reflect back on walking into an employer who maybe doesn't have very good rates, or their premiums are high, and oftentimes we would walk in and walk out and have a discussion and say, it just doesn't seem like they've got good ownership on their program itself. So it's really important that you really kind of get top-down buy-in from ownership down to management and to the employees, and getting the employees involved with the activity in the facility. You may be monitoring near misses, for example. If you have somebody who almost got into an injury scenario or had an incident, are you doing anything to get feedback from the workers who are the front line defense, so to speak, on how that could have been prevented, or what could we do going forward? And then be proactive. It's a tough environment these days. We've shifted towards an environment of do more with less. Sometimes departments are being combined, but it really is a positive impact when we've seen employers really get involved with their programs. Next slide. Barb, you jump in?
Yep. Yep. So not having a knowledgeable point person, absolutely critical that the person who is navigating the entire program for you knows everything that they need to know. And again, it's complicated and there's a lot to learn, but we're here to make sure that that happens. So the point person, it's critical to develop a good relationship with your MCO case manager, your account executive, which would be myself and Todd, your TPA claims examiner. Well, I'm the account executive for the MCO and then Todd with the TPA. So the TPA claims examiner and the BWC representative. On every claim, have a relationship with all those parties who are working on the claim. It is a proactive measure, and a mistake or incorrect process, again, like I said earlier, could cause financial hardship on the claim. Yeah, since you're knowledgeable, since your workers' comp coordinator is essential in managing your workers' comp program, collaborating with everybody on every claim every day is really key. Next page. So another mistake, and this is really still very common, not having an injury reporting process. Do your employees know exactly what they're supposed to do when they're hurt on the job? Even if they're not going for medical treatment, you've got to have a reporting process in place. If an injury were to happen at 12:30 while we're on this call, is your employee going to know what to do, who to go to? Is your supervisor going to know who to go, what to do, and how to handle the employee who's been hurt? So these are critical. It all has to happen contemporaneously with when the injury happened. And if these things aren't happening contemporaneously, you need to tighten up your program. Do your supervisors know how to investigate an accident? In every situation, whether or not they seek medical treatment, go back to where the injury happened. Verify what your employee has told you. Are there hazards? Are there safety issues that need to be dealt with? Are there discipline actions that need to be dealt with? The third-party administrator and the BWC, for the most part, are going to need to know your position on the claim, and it's imperative that the supervisors are involved in communicating that information to the workers' comp coordinator, so the third-party administrator and the BWC can make good decisions for you. Contact the MCO and the TPA as soon as the claim occurs, as soon as you possibly can. So the MCO is going to get the claim from the provider. We always encourage that the employer let us know when an injury happens as well, so we can just start working on it. And it's simultaneously the best proactive means of medical/case management happens when you're working with both your MCO and the TPA at the very same time. So many decisions have to be made, so it's good to be working with both. And both are going to offer different versions, like the MCO, it's the medical piece. What's going to happen with the medical? How serious is this diagnosis? And then the TPA with regard to certification, rejection. Is this legitimate? Is this something that has been going on for a long time? So everybody needs to be in the loop on the claim, coupled with the workers' comp coordinator. And then claims must be reported at the time of occurrence. It only benefits you as the employer. It only benefits your employee that the claims are reported right away, even if they're not seeking medical treatment. I cannot count the times that we'll have. Well, I worked for the TPA for many years before I came over to the MCO. I can't count the times that I needed that maybe I was taking a hearing or maybe I was managing a claim, that I needed to go back to the accident report and see what the accident report really said, because we have to compare it with the medical that we're looking at today. So if they don't seek medical treatment, they may later on. We've got to go back to that incident report. We've got to do the verification. That's why it should be at time of occurrence. If there is medical treatment, many times we have to go back and look and see what they reported initially, because as you might already know, diagnoses change and are added into the claim every day. Next page, please. So what do you do in an injury? So what do you do when you have an injury? Supervisor, witness, incident report, statement, checklist. So you really should have a checklist. What is your checklist? What should the employee be doing? What should the supervisor be doing? And what should the workers' comp coordinator be doing? So if the claim is life-threatening or serious, then of course you call 911 immediately, take care of your employee, and then deal with your checklist when everything is okay. Report and investigate. All that detail should be on the checklist. Obtaining medical documentation. While this is the role of the MCO to do, you need to have that medical as soon as you can get your hands on it. The best case scenario is to have your employee deliver that medical to you after they have gone for their visit to the doctor. And if not, next day, but you always want to make sure your employee's coming back with their medical. You really don't want them to go to the doctor, escape, and not come back and talk to you, because their job is to come talk to you. Your job is to make sure that they're doing that. So the MCO, we are getting the medical. Many times you might get the medical before us because they are walking in the door with it. So you always have to have it. You need to know if they're coming back to work full duty, light duty, what are the restrictions? And the sooner you can get them back on the job, the better off you're going to be, the better off they're going to be. The supervisor should be meeting with the workers' comp coordinator on a regular basis, working hand in hand. What are you doing internally, the workers' comp coordinator and the supervisor, and then reaching back out to the MCO and the TPA for plans of action, POA's plans of action. You have to know what's happening. You have to know when your employee is coming back to work. That just kind of goes to return to work protocol. The best return to work protocol happens when we are all working together. And it's the most proactive, it's the most cost efficient. And it's, again, MCO, TPA, employer, and of course your supervisor. Also critical to maintain contact with your injured worker. Your employees really don't want to be out there solo on this. They don't want to be, well, what do I do next? Who do I call? What do I do? When can I come back to work? What should I? So you want to always keep in touch with your injured worker. If they're off of work for some time, check in on them every few days. Make sure that they know that you're there. Just through the entire claim, you really do need to make sure that you are collaborating with them. Even if they don't call you back, you still have to keep reaching out to them.
I think this that's an important part, kind of going back to a previous slide where you have to be engaged with your workforce, get everybody to buy in. I've always said that a bad workers' comp claim is going to go in the direction that the employee wants to take it in, and it's a matter of trying to control that direction. If you can impact the direction for the injured worker to take it in a good positive direction, because you've got a good relationship with them, you're getting out in front of it, you're making communication, you're going to find that you're going to be able to control a lot of those claims a lot better and reduce those costs. So I think this is a very critical page. Anything else on that one, Barb?
Nope, I think we're all set here. So next page.
So another obvious mistake or error would be missing deadlines and lapse coverage. So with the switch from the Bureau a number of years ago to going towards prospective billing, which in other words, you always used to pay in arrears and you reported your payroll after the fact. Now the Bureau estimates payroll in advance of the policy year. And then once the policy year is up, you have to reconcile the actual payroll. And there's a process that needs to take place in order for that to be completed by the employer. And it's typically required, a month and a quarter after the end of the date. If you do not true up, or you don't complete that reconciliation process, you're going to forfeit or put yourself in a scenario where you're going to be ineligible for a lot of the discount programs if you opted to take advantage of those. So there's some pretty good penalties that are involved. They can retroactively take away discounts and then also disqualify going forward. If you miss a payroll or a premium payment, then you're going to be in a lapse coverage scenario, which essentially means during that period of time, you don't have workers' comp coverage for any injuries that take place. So if an injury does take place, instead of the Bureau taking on responsibility and then building that into the premium costs, you're subjected to out-of-pocket costs of that claim, dollar for dollar for the life of the claim, by the way, that it doesn't go off of your experience. So it's obviously very important to make sure that you're taking a close look at any of the deadlines that you have for premium payments. Next slide, please. So Dan covered a lot of this in his update, so I won't jump in too closely on the next two slides, but there's some important dates for both private employers, and the next slide are important dates for public employers. Again, you can go to the next slide. Again, Dan kind of covered this in his upfront presentation on updates, so we don't need to take a harder look at that. Next slide, please. So understanding how rates are established. So every single employer in the state fund is required to pay premium, and I said it's a payroll-driven system. The Bureau, being the insurance carrier, is going to calculate what those premiums are. It's not that dissimilar from like a car insurance. They're going to take a look at your prior history and compare that against what they expect from an employer. So in Bureau's case, TLL is called total limited losses. And that is what the Bureau is going to expect from an employer in the total claim costs. So it's kind of like the budget that they're setting, if you think of it that way. So let's just say that they have a budget for an employer based on the amount of payroll and the type of workforce that they have is $100,000. They're then going to compare a 4-year history, looking back on claim activity, adding up all of the costs that go into the makeup of an individual claim. That could be medical costs, if there's any lost time and indemnity paid out, and if the claim remains active, there's going to be a reserve. So those 3 components are going to come up and identify the actual cost of an individual claim. They're going to add up the 4-year total and in effect compare it against what was budgeted. If you have exactly what you've been budgeted, then you're going to pay at the base rate that the Bureau's established for you and everybody else in the state that does the same type of job that you perform. If you have more than you've been budgeted, then they're going to increase that amount or add to your EM, which is your experience modifier. So they're going to modify that premium rate above what the base rate is because you have more than what's been budgeted. The goal is to try to figure out how to get your claim costs under control, eliminate them altogether ideally, and get that total modified losses, the TML, lower than what the Bureau is budgeted, and then you'll be getting a discount off of your base rate. And then, once you do that, you can be qualified for any additional programs. So the EM is basically a factor of that budget versus the actual claim cost. Next slide, please. So how do I touched a little bit on it, but how do you impact your bottom line? Not allowing claims to happen, having a safe workforce, and preventing those injuries obviously is the way to go. Know your claims. Make sure that when those claims do occur, that you're on top of them, and you're trying to manage any activity or utilizing the various weapons that you have, so to speak, to try to mitigate the costs or reduce those. Understand which claims are impacting your rates for those 4 years. Eventually, they're going to roll off of your experience, and you're not going to have to worry about those any longer. Understand what your company's budgeted amount and the TLL and the actual dollar amount is, the TLL. It's important to know where you're at within that mix so that you can kind of focus in on which claims are driving those numbers. And then the Bureau is also going to place a maximum claim limit on each individual employer. A very small employer might have a max limit of $2,000 per claim. A larger employer could have a maximum limit of $250,000. Depending on where the claim is within that level, may also dictate how you determine to use resources or out-of-pocket costs to manage the claim. Next slide. We talked a little bit about some of the discount programs. Traditional group rating, which is an upfront discount that's been around for a very long time. Incidentally, the public employer sector is going through a enrollment period for the group rating. At this point, the deadline for paperwork for that would be at the end of May. Group retrospective rating is something that's been around since 2009, and it is a program where the discounts are provided in refunds after the program has completed. It's a 4-year program that compares the entire group's premiums with the actual claim costs. So it's kind of like that same calculation that they have on an EM for an individual employer, but this is a group calculation, and everybody in the group has a role to play on trying to impact the potential refunds that the Bureau may give on upfront premiums that are paid. Individual retrospective rating is kind of like a hybrid between being a self-insured employer and a state fund employer. It's reserved typically for larger employers that maybe pay $400,000 and above in premiums, and you take on self-insured liability for a 10-year period. So that's something to consider, but it also is something that you really have to understand quite well before you make that decision. Next slide. So these are some of the alternative rating programs that are available. And like I said, the good and the bad of the progression of the Bureau has made things complicated by offering so many discount opportunities for employers. So it's a good complicated scenario that they created, because they've offered so many more options for employers to reduce their premiums than there ever were 20, 30 years ago. The Go Green and Lapse Free are administrative discounts by essentially going paperless and making sure you pay your premiums on time. Those are two easy programs to qualify for and offer 1% of your premium up to a $2,000 maximum. Industry-specific safety program is a program that the Bureau offers. A very good program that you have to work directly with the Bureau to qualify for by signing up for a variety of options that they make available for an employer to be able to qualify for those, that type of discount. Barb, you want to take the last three?
Sure. So these programs, going back to what I said earlier, that employers leave some of these rebate programs, like leaving money on the table. These are some of the programs that I was referring to. For instance, the most common two programs that employers can take advantage of let me back up. Employers not in group retro. If you're in group retro, of all these, you can only stack the safety council. But if you're not in group retro, in group rating, and a couple of other programs, you can stack these. And this is where employers don't stack all of them or some of them, and that's where you leave money on the table. The two easy ones, if you're eligible, is the industry specific, and then down where it says the transitional work. The industry specific is worth a 3% rebate. Historically, it's been. And then the transitional work bonus is worth a 10% rebate. Super easy tasks to do to be eligible for the discount or the rebates. And again, this is where I see employers leave money on the table all the time by not participating. Now, the drug-free workplace, that's a 4 or 7% discount program, depending on if you go random or basic. And this is not always a go-to for employers. It just depends. Many employers will say, well, gee, it'll cost me more money to do the program than the rebate I would get. I hear that a lot. Some employers are, well, I just want to do the drug-free no matter what, whether or not I get the money. But the 4% and 7%, this is not stackable on group retro. Doesn't mean you can't have the program up and running, though. So there are, with the drug-free, well, let me back up. The ISSP, you have to do 3 tasks in a policy year period. The drug-free workplace, you have to have policy in place. You have to do training. And I think that's every other year. And then you have to do the post-accident pre-employment, and random is the 7% discount. Safety council, as Dan pointed out earlier, the rebates aren't, well, I think Dan said this, I'm not sure. The rebates aren't there for policy year starting July 1, 2021, but historically it was a 2% rebate. And I'm sure hoping that the Bureau, when they do, I'm sure hoping that the Bureau will bring this back, the 2% rebate anyway. And then the transitional work bonus is up to a 10% discount. Super easy. All you have to do is submit a policy. And if you have a light duty job and you return somebody back to a later transitional duty, then you're eligible for that up to that 10% discount. Now, those of you on this in this meeting that are eligible, and that's i.e. not group retro, the deadline to apply for the ISSP, drug-free workplace safety, and the transitional work, the deadline is the end of this month. The last business day, I think it's the last business day of May. So if you are eligible, I would jump on getting involved. Again, the ISSP and the transitional work bonus, super easy. And that's it. Next page, please.
So these are some of the cost control techniques that we've identified that we would like to touch on briefly. Again, once a claim happens, what you want to do is you want to try to take all tools that are available to try to mitigate the cost as much as possible. I'll cover the three on the left-hand side. Salary continuation. If somebody is injured and they're entitled to collect replacement wages because they're unable to do their job, the employer has the option to pay out of pocket. And what that does is it avoids costs from hitting that claim calculation, but there's also out-of-pocket expenses. So there's a cost factor determination that you have to sit down and discuss as to whether or not that's a good move to make. Once a claim has kind of reached its closure point, we can try to settle it and help the employer reduce the overall costs if that makes sense, or try to at least mitigate any future costs that are going into the claim. And then handicap reimbursement. There are 26 conditions that if we can identify as a pre-existing condition to the claim, then we can petition the Bureau on behalf of the employer to reduce the overall cost of the claim by a percentage. There are some circumstances that have to fall into place for that, but that's certainly a consideration that helps a large claim be reduced by, sometimes as much as 50% of the overall cost.
Yeah, I just saw 50% come through the other day, Todd, on one of our claims. So voc rehabilitation. I don't believe employers know enough about the voc rehabilitation programs that are out there as cost control techniques, and these are primarily managed by the MCO. Voc rehabilitation, under that, voc rehab is returning folks back to, we're trying to get folks back to work who aren't working at all. But under the voc rehab umbrella, there are 4 programs that employers, that MCOs, not even all the MCOs are using them. They're job retention, transitional work services, transitional work therapy, and straight up on-site therapy. And then there's remain at work. Each of those programs, when you have somebody who comes back to work light duty, each of those programs can be utilized for cost control techniques. I am super passionate about using those programs, teaching our employers how to implement those programs, and they're just not being used often enough. So there is more to voc rehab than I think people share. Modified duty offsite, also a popular program. Somebody has restrictions, but you absolutely cannot accommodate, then we can work through the modified duty offsite. That's sending your folks elsewhere to do some light duty work until we can get them back into your workplace. And that is sort of under the voc rehab umbrella as well. So there are so many of those programs that we could be using and should be using, and you should learn about. The transitional work program is straight up, light duty. It's transitioning your employee back to their full duty job and trying to incorporate those umbrella programs. I can't emphasize that enough. Next page, please.
So I'll jump in the beginning on this one, Barb. So I think everything that we've kind of covered, this slide kind of wraps it up. Lack of communication is certainly a big mistake that can be made. As I indicated, and I think we might have proven throughout this presentation, it is a complicated system. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things that have to be considered. So you really need to develop that relationship with the parties that you have in place, the managed care organization, TPA. The Bureau has great resources, and pull in the injured workers. I think it's very important to make sure that you're communicating with everybody that you have on the team to make sure nothing slips through the cracks when you're trying to talk about certification of the claim, bringing somebody back to work. all of the activity that's going on in the claim and with your policy or those annual decisions that you have to make on which programs to select, there's a lot of balls in the air. And you know, not everybody has the resources internally to figure that out on their own. Barb, you know, what do you have to jump in on this slide and kind of contribute to on that?
Nothing that we haven't already covered. I don't want to, at the risk of being redundant.
Yeah, communication is a huge key. Then the last slide, again, I just provided some one more slide, please. Just some quick updates, which again I think Dan covered the open enrollment. I did throw in there that you know, with the COVID, I'm sure this has been covered on previous presentations, but the Bureau has provided 2 telecommuter manual classifications, one for a private employer, one for a public employer, where if you fit into certain circumstances where you've got people working permanently from home, there might be opportunities to report payroll under a lesser paying manual. And there's some information there, and you can certainly reach out to Dan to find out exactly how to get all that put in place. And I believe that concludes our presentation. If anybody has, I'm not sure if we're taking any questions, but I want to thank everybody for your time and thank Barb for inviting me to participate. I know she's very involved with the, you know, with your organization. So I really appreciate the opportunity to get in front of you guys as well.
Yes, thanks, Todd. I couldn't do it without you.
And thank you, Barb and Todd, for taking the time. My biggest takeaway anytime we have you guys present or folks presenting this landscape is really about forming that relationship with your MCO and TPA. It's an ever-changing landscape and a ton of dates throughout the course of the year. So, you know, my big takeaway from this is always around if you don't have a relationship with your MCO or TPA, is something that you need to do, because it helps in the process immensely. So if folks have any questions, they can certainly send them you know, in the chat. Kaylin just put something in the chat about the membership, the WRC membership program survey questionnaire to help us plan out fiscal year 22. You'll look from the Safety Council some information from us on, you know, how and when we're going to be offering our program virtually in fiscal year 22. I do have one question. I think I can answer. If we're already enrolled with the Sedgwick MCO, do we need to do anything during open enrollment? And I think the answer to that is no, you do not.
Nope, do not sign anything.
Okay. So yeah, if you're currently enrolled, and like I said, if you're like me, you're getting 5 or 6 emails a day, you know, from different companies, so on and so forth. So if you're not sure how to navigate that landscape, certainly reach out to Barb or Todd, you know, about this to help you walk through the process, because this is a limited process every 2 years during the month of May, and certainly been, you know, great for us to work with them, you know, if and when we, you know, have any claims from our end. Give about 20 more seconds for more questions. You know, feel free to post them in the chat. While that is happening, yes?
I just wanted to say, whoever asked that question, thank you for your trust in our work.
Beautiful. So we've got a couple of things coming up. A week from tomorrow, we've got a business after hours at the Solon Community Center. You can register on our website, and excited for our next Safety Council, where we're going to hear an update from BWC from Mark Clendenin, titled "No Rebate, No Problem." Talk about BWC integration across a variety of their programs, you know, as we look to, you know, keep our workers safe, but also look at, are we truly taking advantage of all BWC has to offer from an integrated health standpoint? So be sure to RSVP for that invitation and so forth. We'll certainly go out 2 weeks or so in advance if you have not, if you hadn't registered prior to that. So, once again, a huge thank you to Barb and Todd. Thank you, Tony, for your support and that awesome commercial. I got fired up to do some safety training after that. And, everyone's got 12 and a half minutes of undocumented time that they can catch up on emails before your next Zoom meeting, Teams meeting, WebEx meeting, begins at 1 o'clock. So a huge thank you. And we will wrap it up. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe, and we'll see you in a month.